Um,
That sounds about right.
it's about right. So wanted to start out just with, so Nina, why don't we start with you? Um, the question comes up a lot about like, how do you build a database? And that could, one side of it is just the technology, but also when you started out, what was your database and how did you do your database? And this question will go to all three of you guys, but also, what do you wish you did different in regards to your database? So Nina, take
I
it
know
away.
exactly why you're asking me. So I'm really Excel proficient. That's just a technology that I'm easily able to lean on. So I created spreadsheets with tabs, and my first tab had pie charts of where my business was coming from. My second tab had all of my rep agreements through to contracts. So if I had a rep agreement, they were on that list. It's broken down into quarters, and then it tallies the amounts and gross and net and tax and breaks it all down, and then it works towards a goal and percentage of goal for the end of the year. And then my third tab has just A, B, C clients. So A being everyone in the next few months that I should be working with, B being longer than that, maybe 3 months to a year. And then C would be, you've given me indication that you want to move, but I don't have a timeline from you. And then I have just different categories of lists from there, just more random. But mostly working that Excel sheet has been, I just designed it the way that I think. I still do use Zap, but when I want a really good screenshot of what I have actively going on, that's what I use. And I think I would have done it sooner. And I think that I would follow up more. I think that's probably the biggest downfall that I had in my first year, and I probably could have done a lot more business if I had been more consistent with my follow-up, especially since I created a system that allows me to do it so easily.
Great answer. Jason, how about you? How did you start out with the database? Did you have a database and how did you do it?
I knew 0 people when I moved here, so my database was nil. Obviously used that. Started by talking to anyone and everyone I could, getting phone numbers, emails, everything I possibly could. And putting them into Zap, and then we also did a separate spreadsheet ourselves in Excel. Zap's not the greatest program, I'll be honest with you, but you can set reminders, you can, stay on top of all of your existing database. And when you set those reminders, you're able to follow up. And probably one of my strong points is following up and just timelines with my clients and so on and so forth. So, I don't know if you remember this, Jeff, but when we were setting goals quite a couple of years ago, you asked me what I was going to do. And I told you I was going to talk to 2 random people a day. And you told me that was going to be a hard thing. But I did it. I handed a card, tried to get phone numbers and emails from every person that I possibly ran into. And that actually produced for me the most. On top of that, open houses also. But same situation, Zap, spreadsheet, and just constant follow-up with clients was probably my biggest win.
Well, I think, that's a great, so let's not skip over that, when Jason said that he made a commitment to himself to, definitely try to talk to 2 new people per day, that effort, which is hard, but that's what you build a database. So, Rebel, can you talk a little bit about what you did in terms of starting out and how you put together your database?
Well, first I had to figure out what a database was. And
Me too.
I've had no experience in any of this, so kind of just figuring out first what a database was, how to operate it. I mean, I was really starting from scratch, and I was really bad about asking for help. But once I figured out what that was, then I wore my name tag everywhere. I handed my card out to everybody. I would leave it on, if I went out to dinner or breakfast or whatever, I'd leave my card there. I'd try to strike up as many conversations as I could with people. If I heard somebody in the grocery store line talking about wanting to buy or sell or real estate or anything like that, or they had somebody moving into town, I'd be sure to drop my name and give them my card. And I worked a shit ton of open houses, just put in the hours and put in the time. And that's probably that was the most where I found most success, is just hours and the time in open houses. And that gave me the time to figure out how to work my database.
All right, whose last number is 46? Someone needs to put their phone on mute.
Yeah, there's a couple of just numbers on there that need to mute. And if not, I can mute everybody and then you guys can unmute that are talking. We'll see if that works.
Exercise your control, Jen. Mute everybody.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna mute everybody and those that are talking can unmute yourselves. Here we go.
All right, so next question here. Okay, so and this one's a good one, and I love this one. This one might be a kind of a long answer, so feel free to explore everything in terms of what you learned. But and let's start with you, Jason. Now that you've been in this for some time now, what's one thing that you wish you had known either before you got your real estate license or immediately after starting? So what's one thing, if you could go back and talk to your brand new agent self, what's one thing you wish you had known about real estate?
Don't spend a bunch of money on worthless lead programs. You're going to get all kinds of phone calls from everybody and their mom. They're all going to tell you they have the best lead programs in the world. And here's the truth. The leads you create are going to be the best leads you. All of these marketing and lead programs, I mean, fine, Zillow, it can be great, but it's not going to be great for a new agent. It just doesn't work because you don't have, every swinging dick can see that you have 0 sales and you're a new agent. That's just, that's not, that's not going to present very well to, people. Now, when you meet somebody in open house, they don't know who you are or how many sales you have. So just don't spend thousands of dollars on lead programs. Just work everything you possibly can, your face-to-face and your open houses. And yeah, I wish I wouldn't have spent a bunch of money on Zillow trying to get leads and other lead programs. It was just a total waste. It was a nil for me.
Good. Nice answer. All right, Nina, what do you wish you could tell your brand new agent self?
I would, my biggest issue when I first started is that my temperament followed my transactions. And that was a really difficult thing for me to get control of. It took a while to have more of an even temperament. Deals are going to fall apart and they're going to happen, but I would let myself get really upset over it. And even after a closing, like the day after closing, I'd be really blue. And part of it's just worrying about where the next deal comes from. But part of it's just it got climatic, right? You just finish. So I noticed that I was doing that, and it was really like in charge of how I was operating and how I was talking to other people. So I think that was the biggest challenge that I had, that I would talk myself through as a new agent, is that shit happens and you just have to keep going forward and keep your temperament even.
Nice. Rebel, what about you?
I would say to make sure to set boundaries with your clients, because I've stayed past midnight on the phone with clients who could give a shit. The fact that you stayed up till midnight with them on the phone answering the stupidest questions, and that unless it's something that's an emergency, they don't need to know what color tile is going in at midnight. They don't. It can wait till the next day. So, and it's okay to say, hey, I'm with my family, or I'll follow up with you the next day, and they're perfectly fine with that. But I think that you're going to want to feel like you want to get all that done immediately and that everything's an emergency. But if you continue that, then they have that expectation throughout the entire process, which can take, months. And when you start setting those boundaries and they're like, oh, well, why can't you do that now? But I would definitely say to set those expectations with them that they are just as important to you, but so is your family time.
Awesome. All good stuff. All right, here's one that comes up a lot for newer agents and existing agents. And so we'll just kind of go through each of the panelists. Did you set up an LLC for your business? And what have you learned in terms of tracking expenses? And, you know, do you have any tips, tricks, or insight into tracking your expenses as related to it? Start with you, Jason, because you said you spent a shit ton on leads, so you obviously weren't paying attention to your expenses. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you're set up as a small business.
Yeah, my first year was a mess. I had money coming out of every account and just being, it was terrible. So this year, or actually last year, we did decide to set up an LLC, separate bank accounts, credit cards, expense accounts for everything real estate. So now everything's tracked just by using those accounts. I don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, we own other businesses, and we realized that we were commingling funds like crazy. So commingling is one thing you do not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is a disaster at tax time, and you are going to find yourself in a world of hurt. So yes, I think that at minimum, if you want to stay a sole proprietor, yes, at least set up separate bank accounts and use those accounts only for your real estate business. And then obviously all your personal.
Nice. Nina, what about you?
So I'm terrible at tracking that kind of stuff, but I try. More spreadsheets, obviously. But in the first 6 months, I did hire an accountant to do my payroll. It's only like $75 a month. And we've tried it several different ways and have figured out I like to be paid in lump sums versus paying myself every month. So we just designed it around that. So finding a good accountant that works with you in the way that you think is helpful. And after a year, I did set up my own LLC. I have a separate business bank account. Per your advice, I did get a credit card, and that really does help track things much better. Plus, tracking the miles can go towards your next trips, and there's all these other benefits. So those are really the main things that I do, and I don't get it too overcomplicated. And I'm too much of a physical filer, so mostly everything's just in paperwork and folders. Not the best method, but it's my way.
Rebel, what about you?
I have separate accounts for everything. So credit card, checking account, just became an S Corp and starting payroll. I keep track of my mileage with MileIQ. I keep all my receipts, a little envelope, throw them in there, but everything that I buy or do is tracked on that card. So it makes it easy tax time. Can you hear that?
So just to kind of piggyback on that, so, you know, obviously the tax rules have changed a little bit. So that tracking is less critical these days, but it's important because you need to keep a handle on your expenses so you can be a profitable business. It's become less important for, you know, your taxes if you're an LLC filing as an S Corp. So, you know, what I always recommend for agents, you know, in the beginning, you know, it sounds complicated to have an LLC. It sounds complicated to have payroll and all these things, and it is. So in the beginning, it doesn't make sense typically, but at a certain point, you have to start to say to yourself, I need to treat this like a business. And tracking those expenses so you know you're profitable is important, but it's also a liability situation too. So if you're taking your commission checks and depositing them into your personal bank account and you fuck up royally and get sued, your personal is getting sued, not your business. And so you want to keep that in mind, that having that LLC as a wall, not to say that people can't get behind your wall and go after you, it makes it more complicated. So, you know, definitely suggest it just from a liability standpoint. It's important. All right, so we covered mileage and stuff like that. Here's a good one. Jason, I'll start with you because when I met you, you were a pretty confident person. Going into real estate takes a certain level of confidence. But what do you do, on a daily basis or with your business or just with your own personal life to keep your confidence up? Because sometimes, in this industry, we're going to have stuff that we lose, we have things go wrong, whatever. But Jason, what do you do on a daily basis to keep your confidence up and also keep positive?
So this business can be frustrating, as most of you already know, especially the new agents. Just a little background, I didn't sell shit for 3 months, and I was frustrated, and I've been in sales businesses before, and I had to rethink everything, and this is really all about consistency. I get up every morning, I make my coffee, I sit down, I start getting an arm out there, calling leads, sending emails. Honestly, I truly believe, and this is just my opinion, this business is about follow-up. If you continue to follow up, and things are going to go wrong sometimes, but if you continue to follow up with clients, they're going to respond. They're going to get back to you. They're going to want to work with you. They're going to want to see that you are, they're going to see that you want to help them. So, on the staying confident things, yeah, shit's going to go wrong sometimes, but you just got to keep working the next lead, because you might have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 deals in the hole, and 5 of them can go away. But if you're still working your sphere, you're going to add another 4 or 5 on top of that. It's a constant moving business. It's a lot of fun though. You just gotta, you can't let, you gotta kind of praise the wins, and the bad stuff, you just gotta let it roll off your shoulder and move on.
Good answer. So you'd say consistency keeps you confident?
Absolutely.
Cool. I like it. Rebel, what about you? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, my dog keeps whining, so I'm trying to save you all from having to listen to him. When I first started out though, Jeff, my confidence was like in the tank, had 0 confidence, but I just kept telling myself that if I just keep going, and the more I learn and the more I do, the more confidence I'll gain. And that's pretty much exactly what's happened. The more that I learn and the more that I do and the more mistakes that I make, or the more wins that I have, it just makes me more confident in what I'm doing when I'm talking with people. But you don't, for me, I would just say that I gain confidence by doing and knowing what I'm doing, and you have no way of knowing what you're doing until you start doing it. So just know that it comes.
Nice.
That's what I told myself before, and I feel like that would have been something that I would have really taken to heart a little bit more.
Good answer. Nina, what about you? What do you do to keep your confidence up?
When I first started, we did the mentorship. So my first 4 deals, I had somebody to rely on. And then I took on a mentor for an entire year. And that just helped me with my clients, what I was doing. We talked about everything from building business, managing kids and work, and, horrible agents on the other side, clients that give you hell. And that really helped me know that I was doing the right things and taking the right steps through my transactions or finding new business. Since then, education has been probably my biggest confidence builder. This year alone, getting a land designation, I did 40 hours of schooling. And I just keep pushing forward on that. My CE courses, even though it's not necessary, sorry, that's a dog with a bone up there, stop it. Literally a dog with a bone. So yeah, those CE courses, there's so many, you can only take so many knitting for agents. I really focus on taking the courses. Yeah, they might cost a couple of bucks, but they are on really important things, like appraisals. And with my land designation, it's like taking a whole extra week of real estate school. And I can see a difference in talking to people, how I talk to them, but also most importantly, how they respond to me when I'm talking about something that I truly know and understand, kind of the brass and tacks of something. I feel that I'm far better received and probably have more solid leads because of the way that I'm able to communicate with my potential clients.
Good
Stay in
answer.
school. Stay in school.
School kids. All right. Here's a funny question, but this one comes up a lot. So we'll start with you, Rebel. How the hell do you do a CMA?
Practice.
And the answer is not ask Kiara to do it for you.
Although Kiara is a great resource. No, I actually finally started doing them on my own, but just practice. I mean, that's the only real way to, I think, to get more proficient in it. I did take the valuation class. It goes over basically how to read an appraisal, and that really helps because you know what the appraisers are looking for and what they're looking at and how far they go back and what the comparisons are. And I think that class helped me tremendously. I would highly recommend it.
Good answer. Jason, what about you? How the hell do you do a CMA?
Cloud CMA. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is probably a class in itself. You know, I think that practice is definitely going to help you out a lot. I'm happy to help you, you know, walk through 10 CMAs. So you could see how I do it. I think a lot of people are pretty much on the same page with the CMAs. So it's not that difficult once you get used to it. It's just you practice. I mean, do 10, 20, 30 of them, pick a house and just practice. That's my best advice. And I'm happy to help if you want some help, come on over for a drink and we'll go over a few of them.
Perfect.
Can I add something really quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I found that when I was doing CMAs, in my mind, I'd have a specific like amount that I'd want a house to be, and I found that I put emotion into it, almost like a client would, right? And so I have to remind myself that I can't keep searching for something that I want it to be. I have to, the facts are the facts and the numbers show the data. And so not to put that emotion into what you want it to be.
Good answer. Nina, what about you?
So Greenhouse has a buyer's representation CMA format for all the things that Better Homes and Gardens offers that you're able to personalize with your own pictures and information and stats. So that's the first section of my CMA. The second is a cloud CMA. So I use those in combination. I found that RPR is really good at showing you all the different things that it uses to calculate a value, although I look at it, but I always tweak it. But first starting out, I think it's a great tool to look at and see what variables it used to come up with its range. But putting those two things together and then putting them in a clear pack for clients has been how I package my CMAs. And when you're first starting off, there's no better time to practice CMAs because you're trying to get clients. So you could do it for your neighbors, friends, family. I think it's a really great way to start your database and kind of kill two birds with one stone. So that's what I did when I first started.
I like it. Cool. So I'm going to go off script here and call on somebody who's not on the panel. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you a question. So, deer in the headlights. So unmute yourself. But
Hey.
Wait, are you sure you want to? It takes a long time.
Sean, he didn't tell you to unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Mute your ass. This comes up a lot for people who just start in this industry, but it also happens to agents who've been in the business, 3 years, and sometimes we plateau, sometimes our business goes in the tank. But can you think back to your first year in real estate, Lisa, and talk about how the hell did you survive financially your first year in real estate?
Sure. So I don't know if you remember this, Jeff, but when I was interviewing brokerages to try to figure out where I was going to land before I had made the decision to come to Better Homes, you and I were sitting there chatting, and you said you have a large savings account or a big chunk of money in savings that you can live off of for a while, because most agents don't make money their first year. And it was like the first time I'd ever heard that, or even dawned on me, like, oh crap, like I'm not going to be getting, I'd never worked a position where I didn't get a consistent paycheck, like as a salary. So I was like, oh. And so I don't remember if you remember what I answered, but I was like, no, I don't have any money in savings, and I'm a single income household with 2 kids. I don't have a choice to not make money for a year. Like, that's not a choice. Like, I'm going to have to figure out what it is that I need to do in order to make money, because I have a mortgage and kids to feed and no savings. So you handed me this list that was called the Lucky 13. And you said, okay, I want to challenge you to do every single thing on this list. And he's like, but just so you know, nobody does all 13. They do maybe 3 or 4. And if you do 3 or 4, you're going to get excellent results. And you're like, even if you do 1 or 2, you're going to get excellent results. Like, this list is a guide to help you start making money. And so you're like, just do the best you can. And I was like, I'm going to do all of them. So I did. And I came back to you like 2 weeks later, and I was writing my first offer on a cell. And I told you I did everything on the Lucky 13 list, and your jaw like hit the ground, and you were like, what? You did all of them? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I was staying up sometimes until like 3 or 4 in the morning on my computer, like doing the tasks on this Lucky 13 list just to get them all done. And I got them all done, and I did every single one of them in 2 weeks. And one of the things on the list was, first of all, I mean, you have to reach out to your sphere, and you have to talk to people, and all the things that we've talked about, which are all great things. But one thing that it said on the list was, and I think you reiterated this to me, Jeff, I remember having a conversation with you, but it said every single time you finish a meeting with somebody, no matter who it is, whether it's about business or a friend or a family member or whatever it is, whether you've talked about real estate or not, which you should be talking about real estate at some point, but whatever the encounter was initially for, you end it with, is there anything I can do for you? And they always say no. And then you say, are you sure? And you wait. And then they go, well. So that worked for me. That's how I ended up writing my first offer and selling my first house within the first 2 weeks of me being licensed. Was I was meeting with a gal that I was just catching up, having coffee with, that I had known in the past, working with in a different world. And I said, is there anything I can do for you? And she's like, no, I think I'm doing great, thanks. And I'm like, are you sure? And I just stared at her, and she goes, well, my husband and I have been thinking about buying a flip. So, I mean, I don't know. I know you're brand new, and I don't know, like, maybe. I'm like, I have all the time in the world. What are you looking for? And she's like, well, it's kind of a needle in the haystack, and it's in the North End, and I'm looking for something that's not listed yet. And, you know, maybe you could go knock on doors or whatever. And I'm like, done. And that was the first house I ever put under contract. So I think that just making sure that you are, I think my first year, first of all, I was relentless. I was so relentless. I would not give up. It didn't matter like what fell. It didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter who it was. Like, I was just relentless, because I was like, I can't lose my house. I can't let my kids starve. I have to maintain. So I just found an opportunity to sell in any environment I possibly could. But the most productive way for me was open houses. I did them 4 times a weekend. I would do 2 a day every weekend for my first year. I would do one from 10 until 2. And then I would go I did them from 10 to 1 and then 2 to 5. So I would have an hour in between to take down my signs and get to the next open house. And I would do that every Saturday and every Sunday for like the first year. I mean, I'm sure there was some weekends where I couldn't do that, but for the most part, I did 4 open houses a weekend my first year. And I think I remember sitting down with you, Jeff, after my first year, and we went over my production, and you were like, we were sitting at we were sitting at Kona Grill, and you said, I want you to identify on this list where all of these people came from. And I did, and it was like 80% of them were open houses. They were all leads that I picked up at open houses in my first year. And so that was by far, hands down, the most productive way for me to survive and make money. And I think Jason hit it on the head. Like, I think follow-up is really important. You've got to be able to stay in front of people. What I always tell new agents when I talk to them is something that Jeff would always say that still rings true. It's not about the sell today. You got to be available when life happens. So whoever you meet today might not be writing an offer today, but they might be writing an offer when they get a job change in 3 months, or when they find out they're pregnant and they need another room in their house, or when they find out they're getting a divorce, or whatever it is. Real estate aligns with transition in people's lives, whether it's a happy transition, a sad transition, good, bad, whatever. Usually a purchase and a sell happens when something in life changes. And so you just got to stay in front of people, stay relevant, talk to them, let them know that you're there, so that when life happens, you're the first one they think of. The UPS man is here, so my dogs are about to start barking. So.
Nice. Good answer. Appreciate it, Lisa.
Yeah.
Nina, what did you do to survive financially in your first year?
Oh, so I do have the benefit of having a husband that works a consistent, pretty good paying job, but we were paycheck to paycheck when we first started with real estate. So I pretty much just shoved all of our expenses and everything over to his paycheck, and we called him the biscuit and I was the gravy. So for a while I was the gravy train. But I think some of the smartest things that I did, you wouldn't think it, but the very first paychecks that I got, I threw everything I had at like our car payments, any credit card debts, I paid off everything so that we could just sit on his income and survive if I didn't sell. But we were really fortunate. I was in contract in my first 30 days off of a Zap lead of all things. So, we were really fairly consistent with income. Within the first 2 to 3 months, we had at least enough. And then pretty soon he became the gravy. So that's always great. I'm the biscuit now.
I call Chris the little biscuit next time I see him.
Right.
Rebel, how about you? How did you survive financially your first year in real estate?
Before I started, I had saved up some money, obviously, and just knew that this is what I had. And if I didn't make it, then, all of this was going to be for nothing. I'm lucky enough to have a husband who, is the breadwinner of the family, but I don't sit well, and I stayed at home for a really long time. And, I enjoy work. I like working. I love people. And just being able to know that I had that budget, and if that ran out, then I wasn't going to be in the business anymore, and I don't want to be a failure. So it was just all about, if somebody from the brokerage called and said, hey, can you show this house out in Star and it's 7:00 at night? Yeah, absolutely. I'll go do that for you. It was my goal to, in the first year, and if I had to go more, to never say no to anybody, to always be the yes person, and I will absolutely be on it, and whatever you need, I'm there. And that seemed to be helpful. And yeah, that's pretty much.
What about you, Jason? Now, both you and your wife are licensed with us, but you have separate businesses. But what did you do to survive your first year?
We were pretty financially stable when we got started, so we did save quite a bit. But ultimately, we treated this like. And to be honest with you, I went backwards for the first 6 months in real estate. I think I was negative $18,000 before I even sold my first deal. And that's because, again, I was buying up all of this lead program crap. And anyways, so we were fine getting started. It's just don't start in the negative. That's a mistake.
Gotcha. Good answer. All right. A lot of times people ask about niches in real estate and how do you find your niche in real estate? So, Rebel, do you do you feel like you have a niche in real estate, or are you searching for being in some sort of niche? So talk a little bit about that.
For me, I wasn't really sure when I first started out. That was something that I felt that niching down would eliminate people from me, because I wanted to be all inclusive. But I quickly decided, because I'm from California, a lot of people from California are living here, that it just made sense for me to focus on relocation. And that seems to be the majority of my business. So I'm just mostly focusing on that. It seems to be the low-hanging fruit. And but for me, it was a natural fit. The shoe just fit. So I just went for it. And even though it was scary to kind of say, well, this is what I want to focus on, it ended up working out for me thus far. But who knows? I mean, things can always change, and I'll have to pivot and figure something else out.
Good. Jason, what about you?
I think there is no niche. You just have to talk to everybody, sell as much as possible. It doesn't matter whether it's land, new homeowners, $1 million house. I mean, you got to try to go after everything you possibly can at first. So I don't really have a niche. I just take every client I possibly can and do the best I can for them.
And he pronounces it in the French way. He's so highfalutin. Nina, what about you? You definitely did.
Clearly, I may have a niche. I find that my clients think that the hiking realtor is a very charming nickname that I've considered dropping, but I've had too many people say they like it, so it's going to stick. So I found my niche by accident. My first property was over 600 acres of timbered land, and I just rolled with it. And if you're looking for a niche, especially as a first-time agent just starting out, you're going to be able to sell what it resonates with you, what you're comfortable with. Selling a land property, selling a house in general, I felt very inexperienced. This was my very first transaction, but I do understand the lifestyle of living in the mountains, and I was able to really speak to that with a great amount of confidence. So that's where you find your niche. What are you most confident with? I've been asked if selling land and acreage alienates me from selling other houses, and I would say it actually enhances it. And that's how I bridge that with clients that are buying a house in the subdivision or in the North End or somewhere like that, just saying everything's on land. So it just makes me better at selling. I know more about your property than an agent that just sells a traditional home. So that's how I leveraged having the niche to be able to sell all things. But yeah, I definitely have a lot of heart in the land properties. And I also tell people that I'm selling them someday. That's kind of the pitch. Everybody, someday I'll have a little house in the mountains. Someday I'll have a little cabin. Someday I'll have a little property with horses and acreage. And that's my pitch. I make someday today. It's more doable than people think, especially here. So
nice. Good answers. So, so this will be our last question, and then we can kind of just open it up for, free form talking, what have you. And this comes up a lot, is just kind of what does a day in the life of a realtor look like? Like, what are you doing every day? What do you consistently do? What do you try to make the schedule look like? So, Jason, kind of start with you. You had talked about how you just start every day, you get your coffee and you get after it. But what does a typical day in the life of Jason, the realtor, look like?
I think they're all different, but yes, I think the consistency in the morning for me works well. Have my coffee, do my follow-ups, make my phone calls, and then I look at my SkySlope, check all of the transactions, make sure everything's done. And here's the thing, you're going to have a day full of all kinds of different things every single day. I mean, I know Sean and Lisa, they're crazy all the time. So, I kind of listened to Lisa when I first got started, and she kind of told me, hey, this is how you're going to do it, because when you have 5, 10, 15 transactions, you're going to be losing your mind. So every day is going to go differently, but if you get started in the morning on a consistent basis and get done what you need every day, and then move out into the field and do what you need to do. And then here's the thing, when you get home at night and you put the kids to bed, don't leave 30 emails in your email box to worry about in the morning. It's just going to be a nightmare. Make sure to get everything you possibly can done before you go to sleep. Even if it takes you till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, just get it done, because when you get up in the morning and you have 70 emails, now you're really screwed. And it just piles up on you day after day after day, and before you know it, you're so behind you can't catch up. I mean, seriously, it can get daunting, but just stick with it, put together a plan, stay consistent, it'll work out for you.
Great answer. Rebel, what about you? What does a day in the life of Rebel look like?
Coffee, emails, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, just try to catch up on everything. I'm with Jason with the email thing. I try to answer all emails with like immediately if I can. If not, I'll put a star on them or flag them so that I know to go back, because otherwise with all the emails that we get, you can get buried in there, because I don't like to delete anything that's, I don't like to delete emails. I like to keep them all unless they're junk and then they get deleted, because I'm afraid that, you know, I might miss something or have to go back and find something. But, and then it's pretty much, you know, making phone calls and following up with people and going out and doing tours, or, you know, it's kind of weird lately because our routine is so different that every day kind of seems a little bit different depending on where my kids are at and kind of what we're doing, and working in the kitchen is always a blast. So.
You just roll with it. No, good
Yeah, I mean, just the follow-up, like first thing in the morning, actually before I even have coffee, I look at my phone and I'm looking at texts and emails just to go through and see what's there and kind of know what I need to do in the morning. And the morning sets my tone for the rest of the day. Making lists are always gotta have lists, because otherwise I'm up at 3 a.m. because I can't go to sleep because I'm afraid I'm gonna forget something. So if you have a list, then you don't wake up at 3 a.m.
Good answer. Nina, what about you? What does a day in the life of Nina, the realtor, look like?
Oh, well, I have a 5 and 7-year-old assistant, so it's super, super inconsistent. So I've tried time blocking. That was a big thing I tried for a good stretch of time, and literally blocking out in my calendar times to do social media, times to follow up with people, and slowly things just worked their way off the list. So I am married to my Google Calendar. I think that's, every day is different, but there's a sense of consistency and normalcy by color coding the type of things going on. So like a transaction, for example, I go through my calendar per your advice, Jeff, but it's color coded, it's green, it's called my transaction schedule, all the days that things are due. So those are literally, the other days are days I don't even have to think about what's coming up. It's on the calendar. So there's always just a calendar check, what is happening in that day. I found it more consistent to do certain things in a day whenever I have the time available. So I try and reach out to 5 to 10 people for any given purpose, real estate related, each day, and take a day off. Like, find a day to just hit pause, answer the email, answer the text, but don't like put out any energy that day. Like, just have a day to like go do anything other than real estate. You have to take a break. So I would say that's the most important thing. Take a day off.
Great advice. Cool. Well, let's just open it up. Does anyone have any questions just for the group or the panelists, or anything else they want to talk about?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
Thank you guys for all the feedback. It's been really great and insightful. I'm trying to learn as much as I can right now when we're kind of at the stay-at-home order with the coronavirus. But my question for you guys, I guess, would be with, in your first year, you've done a ton of open houses and you're out speaking with people, at least 2 people a day. What would be some ideas or maybe some insight on how to do that right now with the coronavirus, when people are maybe a little bit more hesitant to speak with you face-to-face, or open houses aren't a possibility right now? So what are some ideas in that?
If I was a betting man, I would go to that bar that's opening up on Saturday and hand out all my fucking cards to everybody who walks in there.
Business cards.
I will be there. I will be there.
And Sean can tag team it, and then you guys will crush it. So
There we go. I'll show you the ropes. I'll show you the ropes. Let's do it.
it is definitely hard, but think about what social media is right now. So social media is your way to, also, here's a side note. I thought of something. I'm not going to do it because I don't need to start another business right now, but I did think it might be smart to get the domain name quarantinesingles.com. Just a thought. There might be some opportunities there. But so think along weird lines like that. Like, how could you augment your social media right now? Because that's a way to be socially distanced but socially connected. And it's a unique time to be able to do that. No, it's not ideal. Even these video chats aren't ideal. But if you could set a goal for yourself to have 2 meaningful phone conversations or video conversations per day with people in your sphere. Now, they don't have to be, you know, just like Rebel was saying, like she's completely niched out on relocation because so many people are moving here. So if you know people in other states, establish those relationships or reestablish those relationships, and just make it a point to be doing it every day. And yeah, it is way easier to be, you know, I always refer to open houses as flies on the water. When you're fishing, if you've got, you know, an open house, you got a fly on the water, you're going to catch fish. You got a way better chance. And there's just no doubt it's one of the most effective ways. We just can't do that right now. So we will, I mean, at some point, you know, T-minus a few days, hopefully, but it'll probably be different, and we'll probably have less people coming to open houses. So we got to think about different ways to do this. Any other ideas from you guys?
Yeah, so I was having a frustrated conversation with Lisa, and she recommended I go through all of my contacts and just check on everyone, see if they're all right. I went through my ABC list, which has close to 200 names, numbers, emails, what they were looking for. And I used a website called Mighty Text that allows you to text from your phone, but from the keyboard of your laptop or computer. It's way faster. So I just typed out, I'm running errands for clients while I'm out and about. Do you need anything? I'll keep an eye out. And then it started a whole string of conversations, 200 people. Even if 10%, you're still talking like 20 people. I have several updated leads as to when they're ready. And then people who I didn't even know if they would still continue to use me because it's been a while since I reached out, have followed up and said that they are ready in April or May or June or when this thing is over. So it just allowed me to update everything. But call and text or video conference every single person you know. Now's the time to fall back on your database. And if you're new, your database is Sphere. So start tapping your Sphere. And social media, obviously, quite a bit of that. So
I would say
one of the things on social media that has changed right now that, you know, I'm not going to say I've figured out how to leverage, but Facebook is definitely moving to Facebook groups. And I would strongly encourage you guys to go out there and explore those Facebook groups out there. There's lots of all of a sudden neighborhood groups, you know, different city groups. Like, you know, I joined one just yesterday. It was like people who live in Eagle. And it, you know, it'll probably turn into a shit show like Nextdoor and whatever. But if your profile shows that you're a real estate agent, works at Better Homes and Gardens, and you join that, then all of a sudden everyone sees, you know, what you do and who you are, and you might start some conversations in there or have some insight. And so, you know, it's opportunities to meet people when we're not allowed to go out and meet people right now.
I think that's a really good point, Jeff. I wanted to just let everyone know that recently I had met someone before this happened. I was at a birthday party, and we all went out for ice cream. And one of the other moms there was like, "Oh, hey, I saw on Facebook that you're friends with Jen Bean." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I work at the same office as her." And they're like, "Oh, I met her in the community Facebook group for Mountain Home." sold us a house. So I've seen it in action. It works.
Awesome. Also, the internet sucks in the trailer bathroom, just FYI.
Oh, I know. It just popped up and said your internet connection is unstable.
Cool.
Hey, I was just going to say real quick, kudos to Nina. She is one of the most coachable people because
I'll do whatever you say.
she's so good because she'll call me and she's like, okay, she'll express some kind of like concern or issue or need some advice or like, what should I be doing? And I will tell her, I'm like, okay, this is what I would do if I were you. And I told her, I'm like, right now, like Jeff was saying, we can't do open houses. There's so many things we can't do, but I'm like, here's the things we can do. And this is what you should be doing. You should be reaching out to every single person you know right now, everybody. And it doesn't have to be about real estate. It doesn't have to be, hey, it's a pandemic. Want to buy a house? Like, that's just freaking wrong, right? So I'm like, reach out and be like, hey, it's a pandemic. Are you okay? What can I do for you? Do you need anything? Like, don't make it about real estate. If they want to make it about real estate, great. But just stay top of mind, stay in front of them, let them know that you're there. Because if you can help them by dropping off toilet paper, you can help them buy a house, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is stay relevant with whatever your clients need, period. And dude, every time I tell Nina what to do, the girl is like, on it. And she freaking goes, and then she checks in. She's like, look what I did. Or like, she'll have an issue and she'll call me and she's like, I don't know what to do about this. And I'm like, do this. This is what you need to do. I would do it like this. And then she'll like BCC me on the emails and she's like, done it. I'm like, dude, girl. So Nina, seriously, you're super coachable, which is, I think, like being able to take constructive criticism in this business, which I get a lot from Jeff all the time. Like, Lisa, like the email right before this meeting, we need to talk. I'm like, what did I do now? Oh my gosh. But you have to be able to be coachable. You have to be able to take constructive criticism. You've got to be able to reach out to the people that you trust that can help you, and lean on your team. Like, that's what Better Homes is all about. Lean on your team, period. So.
Nicely said. Well, with that, it's 11. So any other questions before we adjourn? Cool. Thanks, guys. Jan, thanks for setting this up. This worked great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Panelists, thank you very much. You guys, you three, thanks for sharing and participating. I think it makes a world of difference for everybody. So appreciate it, guys. So see y'all later. Be safe out there. Talk soon.
Yeah.